Good morning. I'm going to call the Board of Water, Wastewater Commissioners meeting to order at the Harwich Water Department at 196 Chatham Road, Harwich, Mass. on Thursday, February 16th, 2023 at 11:30 a.m. Any public announcements, comments? Consent agenda for the minutes for January 18th. That's a misprint. It's actually January 26th. We'll have those added to the agenda for our next meeting. I'm going to actually go out of order, and I'm not going to have Mr. Otten sit here for the entire meeting. So let's move down to new business. It's a request from Patrick. Is it Otten? On fertilizer home rule petition. So this is a request for the board's support on the fertilizer. I don't know if you guys had a chance to read the petition.
There's really no new news there. It's a duplicate of what Orleans town meeting passed this past fall. It's the same proposal that our Board of Selectmen did not act on when the Board of Health and Health Department asked the Selectmen to take a position on the same topic of having home rule for the application of fertilizers. You guys are the experts, not me, so you know all about fertilizers, the impacts, and what we're going to do. So I am just asking for your support. It's going to be a tough call. There's going to be a lot of public opposition because of their need to have urban lawns. So.
Noreen.
Okay, so. Well, I don't think we really are the experts. I think the Board of Health is really the experts, quite frankly. But, you know, what I'll say, and I'm certainly not an expert on this topic, is I did listen to all of the discussions in the lead up to the Board of Health vote, and all the discussions by all the people who presented, and I listened to all of the discussions at the Board of Selectmen meeting. And you're right, a call could be made either way, but after listening to all of those discussions, I'm concerned, having worked in the government for a long, long time, about who truly, you know, different methods are great, but who truly in the town is expert enough to write a set of fertilizer regulations in this small town of 12,000 people. I mean, it concerns me, you know. I've worked for over 20 years, and, you know, I hear people talking about newsletters. Well, who really is going, you know, we're just getting so much bigger, you know, with everything. And you know, I did hear people talk about how bans are one way to do things, but then, you know, we're dealing with our own situation with bans, with the laws, the regs being changed from the state, in terms of the state wants to control every time we have a water ban, but yet we might not be in a circumstance, and you know, goodness, if we have to make our users go through that for nothing, you know, but a government reg. And there could be areas that with a, you know, a ban and a rewrite that would be in the same position. So all I can do is give my opinion. I'm not an expert, but I did, you know, listen to a lot about it. And at this point, since the Board of Selectmen has voted to go with the state plan for now, and also to add on, I saw the presentation about the work that is going to be done at our own Lothrop in terms of showing some alternative garden, you know, lawn types of things. And also the education, which we've all talked about for 10 years, and it starts and it fizzles. But the group that was Dan, Amy, and Katie looked pretty determined when they presented at the Board of Selectmen. So personally, that's going to be my view for now, is that I'm going to support the Board of Selectmen's method for the moment and the plan by our department heads. So.
All right. Mr. Thompson, anything?
You know, all I say, somehow we continue the way we are. we're gonna pay.
Right.
You know, we're gonna sue them and still have a problem, you know. So, yeah, you know, I'd say continue on, see where it goes.
All right.
You got nothing to lose.
Yeah, I think, I don't think I was disagreeing with you. We have an issue, it has to be addressed. But I think at this, for me anyway, at this time, I think we're just gonna sit back and just see what happens with the, where the town goes with the select board, and see what happens at town meeting.
I mean, I put the article in, even if you,
Oh, it is, it's been
It's
submitted.
Yeah, it's in.
yeah, because I'm
Just the
gonna support
fertilization.
it.
The fertilization,
you know.
not the remote
It's,
participation.
you got nothing to lose, you know. But at some point, you gotta either start doing things like this, or you sue the whole time.
Yeah.
And
Water is the reason why we're here, both fresh and salt water. Once that's gone, I can't swim in a cyanobacteria bloom. I can't go,
Yep.
and there's more and more ponds.
Yeah,
We're losing our shellfish, we're losing our seashore.
yeah,
But I just want to make one comment. I don't use the word ban, because everyone takes up their arms.
You're right, good point.
So this is a regulation to limit fertilizers to organic. And it only applies, well, you can use whatever fertilizer you want on agricultural or food production at your home. This is simply saying, otherwise, it's organic. You know, you can use leaf mulch, etc., for your own home use.
I appreciate the clarification. No, it's an important
And
one.
that's in
Yeah.
the full body
Okay.
of the,
I missed it,
yeah, okay, so it's saying organic.
yeah.
So we're not saying ban, that's not true.
yeah, yeah.
The question I have when you come to regulation, you know, the state has standards. If I do a soil test and I send it in, they say, oh, you're low on potassium, oh, you're low on nitrogen. Is that so I can grow corn? You know, are those limits set for agricultural purposes? You know, Cape Cod for thousands of years has adapted to this climate, to this soil, to these conditions, and it grows well. So they sampled here, if they sampled a natural area, would say, oh, that needs potassium. Oh, no, this needs nitrogen. Oh, this needs, you know. So I'm not sure the standards that are being applied by the state are appropriate for where we live. Okay. And, you know, I'd love to have that feedback. Maybe I should start taking samples in the woodlands where things do grow.
Yeah, but, I mean, some plants are suited for acidic, and other plants are suited for sweet.
Yes.
I never hear anybody mention lime. I put lime on, it greens it right up.
Yeah. This doesn't address Lyme, like,
Yeah, no, well, lime is a neutral,
right,
eliminates acid.
yeah,
I got all kinds of pines, acid.
right.
Yeah.
So, the effort for this is to let Harwich decide. And, you know, Orleans has said, yes, we can go Cape-wide on this and have it throughout all the towns in the same standard. I think we'd be a step ahead. I've already talked to Sarah Peet. She supports this. She said if it passes town meeting, she definitely will take it to the state legislature and petition to have the right for Harwich to have the home rule. So that correspondence has already happened. So she'll follow up if the vote is yes to have home rule decision on fertilizer application.
Well, that's great. Sounds a good person.
And I know, just to throw it out there, I've mentioned this to you before, my concern with the fertilizers that are often touted as organic is they're made from wastewater biosolids, which are known to contain PFAS. So that's my one concern, is if we steer everybody towards an organic alternative, that we then result in putting PFAS out instead of fertilizer.
Can I ask a question on
Yes.
that? Do you know if, because that's like escalated to the federal level, I know, do you know if they're going to, the folks that give the organic certifications, if they're going to be required to test now for PFAS in those products before they can stamp them?
I don't know as far as the organizational body that deems something to be
Yeah.
organic. What I would just throw out there is that wastewater's way behind you know, we are on the water system side of things. So they're still unpacking the PFAS laden residuals. They're, you know, I guess they used to truck them up to Maine and they would put them out for agricultural fields, things like that, but now they've stopped that because of the PFAS. So I don't know where it goes. If the town's decision is to ban or limit fertilizer, my advocacy is just going to be that whatever the alternative is, we're very, you know, intentioned with what that
Being
message is,
PFAS free.
because, you know, we could put ourselves in a worse situation if we put PFAS out, is all.
All right, anyone want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we support Patrick's article and do no harm.
You're making a motion to support it.
Yep.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So, two for two. Two for two.
We need John here, huh?
I know, he's on his way.
All right, well, thank you for coming in.
I appreciate it.
And appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah.
We do all agree that something needs to be done, but at this point, I think there's just not enough information out there to make a solid decision
Yeah,
right
so
now.
the issue for you, who would be the expert in town to decide which fertilizer? You know, in my petition, it does state what organics are.
Okay.
So I'm not just generally just saying organic.
Right.
There is a citation there of what
Right.
standard it is.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can't answer your question about what happens with
No, I know, and that's where my
Yeah, it's a good
hesitance,
question.
you know, is all about, is, you know, I just concerned with, people package things up as organic and,
Right.
you know, and sell them all the time, and I just, like BPA water bottles, when we went to BPA free water bottles, they went to BPF, which is a far more hazardous constituent than BPA. So I just concerned about that sort of circumstance, but.
The reference I've heard for organic is leaf mulch, so it's not using bio.
Leaf mulch is good, I'm okay with leaf mulch.
So that's the reference I've heard for the organic.
And that's what the state was preaching.
Okay.
Leave them.
Would it make sense to think about substituting organic for leaf mulch? I don't know. I mean, is there enough leaf mulch?
It depends on what tree the leaves are.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a challenge too,
Oak
right?
is acid and maple is sweet.
Yeah.
Right. Well, good. Well, thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
It's going to
you.
be an effort, you're right. We'll see how the town goes.
Yeah.
So a 2-2 vote means no letter of support, or you can just write that.
Or revisit when there's 5 of them.
This is a unique situation, because
Yeah.
we've always had, it was a 3-member board, and we couldn't have a quorum without 3
That's
members,
right.
but now we have a 5, and it
Yeah.
can happen, so.
We normally wouldn't write a letter saying it was 2-2, because a 2-2 vote means nothing happened,
I would agree, that's just,
Yeah.
it's just no.
right?
And John's late, he's coming in now.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
All right, good, thank you.
all right. All right, going on to abatements for FY '23 Q2 Water Department usage. $2,874.27.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hey, John.
Hey.
All right. And next abatement is 24 Gorham Road. It looks like for $50, because the homeowner, or whoever the resident, the relative, didn't pay the bill. Have we had many late payments here?
So this one, we actually did give a late payment on, and it sounds like there's somebody else living at the property, and they just, mail issues or assumptions were made, and so bills were unpaid. But since we've already given a late fee forgiveness, he's asking for 2 more. So,
Noreen?
Just on this, transaction history, when it says bank transfer, I was wondering, so this being like this time, didn't have anything to do with the change in, lockbox, did it?
no,
Okay,
not at all.
all right, that's what I was wondering.
No, it's just, that just means that
We
the
sent it
payment
that
was
way.
received and we processed it that day.
Yeah, I didn't know it was, something automatically set up and it got done, so, well, I don't know what to say.
So they're looking for $50, but how many late fees do they have? 100?
No, not that many.
All right.
They've had a few, I'm not sure if you have the history there, but there have been a few. So I'm not sure if whatever issue they were having has been resolved.
So the $50 are the late fees?
Yeah, that's what they're asking for.
Do they
That
not-
represents 2 late fees.
Do they know that we have that awesome texting thing now? Because I just find it really helpful. Because
You have
this
a
just
lot
sounds like it's a second home and there's a communication challenge on their end.
It could be a tenant or some miscommunication about who's paying what. We kind of didn't delve into it. But what we could do is, we could certainly, remind them that we have the online, we have the texting, we have, automatic emails that are sent out every time bills are going out, as well as late notices via email as well as paper. So we have quite a few things in place to help people out to avoid these.
Noreen?
I've worked for other utilities that also have, the one-time grace and things like that, and, it's great when it's the first time, you can say, okay, you don't have to think too much about it, we'll do that one-time thing, but if you don't hold to it, then the one-time thing doesn't mean a heck of a lot. So since, this user has had one before and has multiple late fees, I mean, there's, an ongoing problem, I would have to say they have to work out their problem.
Anything else? A motion?
What is it, three $50 late fees on them?
I believe he's asking for 2.
Right, but
Oh.
but there are multiple late fees.
Which he's paid, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, it's not an unusual situation.
No. I'll make a motion to deny. Is there a second?
Second,
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
All right, Dan, this is it. Are we ready for, Route 28?
Yes. I have hot off the press. Take one and pass it down.
You have two? You have two?
Oh,
Should only be one.
I think you
Those must
passed me
have
your,
been-
Just a little trick.
Yeah.
Is this yours? Is that yours?
No, I got mine.
Maybe
I have
it's,
mine.
no, it's not mine.
I don't know.
What is it? Which one?
It's an agenda.
Agenda, do you have
Oh,
agenda?
no, I have it. Yeah.
Do you have yours?
What?
All right, let's move on.
It's an extra.
Here we go.
So I just received the other day from GHD some updated cost estimates for the Route 28 water main project, though I will say, just as we look at these, there are still some changes that are likely going to be made. So what we're looking at is a breakup of the entirety of the water main project. Or Contract 1, we're considering from Division Street to the Herring River, which is the part that will be done with Mass DOT, and then Contract 2, which was from Herring River to Lower County Road. We're breaking this up just because only a portion of it is being done by Mass DOT.
Sorry?
Did you have a question? You looked like you had a question.
Thinking, that's how I think.
We're actually still recently considering, if you look at Contract 2, you'll see a directional drill construction subtotal that we are contemplating removing as part of this to do ultimately what will be a third construction contract. The Harbor Master is working with APCC and Horsley Witten to design some drainage and boat ramp improvements there, where the directional drilling is really separate and distinct from traditional water main installation. And the Harbor Master has a project there. It may be an opportunity for us to partner and potentially save money. The design work that's being done at the boat ramp right now is funded through grant money. So we believe that due to the identification of this project and it being already funded through grants, that may lend itself to us getting some grant funding for our portion of the work. So we're looking into pulling that out as a separate standalone contract with the Harbor Master. Just in big numbers, if you add these two together, we're at a project cost of 16 million. We did have a placeholder number of 14 million for a town meeting. So, as I mentioned, these numbers are still being refined. One of the things that we're going to be doing in the near future is rehook up back with DOT to go through our preparation of the cost estimate as compared to what they typically cover to see if we're over accounting for anything. Because ultimately Mass DOT will be performing a lot of the resident engineering, submittal, processing, and construction administration things, so we want to make sure we're not accounting for those in multiple places. I guess that's all I have for my spiel at the moment.
Now,
So-
I'm
I'm sorry, go, John.
The directional drillings for going under Herring River?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what boat ramp is over there?
There's a little boat ramp, right?
On
Oh, I'm sorry, on the other
yeah,
side,
yeah,
on the other
yeah,
side,
yeah.
okay. Thank you, that was my question. Noreen?
So, how does the putting in the dry sewer pipe work in with this?
So the dry sewer pipe, I have a separate estimate for, but they didn't include the grinder pumps, which is gonna be a big component of that cost estimate, so I didn't wanna bring that up yet. The same conditions that apply to contract one of the water project would apply to the dry pipe, and that would receive the same savings, construction oversight from Mass DOT. Just for discussion's sake, the sewer project placeholder was 7 million, and the estimate that I went over that didn't include the grinder pumps was somewhere around 3.8, I believe. So that should be it.
Okay, so I guess conceptually, DOT is going to be doing the area from Division to Herring, and in that middle of that process, we're going to replace our water main. So when and where does the dry sewer pipe get dropped in?
At the same time as our water
Okay,
pipe.
it is at the
Yeah.
same time. So that's why the estimates, well, I know the estimates changed on the dry sewer pipe because of the grinder pump question. But I mean, there's no duplicity between, you know what I'm trying to say? This is really three parts, a three-part project.
And this is one of the things that we're trying to wrap our heads around with DOT, is exactly this relationship, is what does the town own, what does DOT own, and, you know, what that relationship is gonna look like, so.
Right. Okay, I was just trying to fit them in. Yeah.
Are they also gonna be dropping the utilities on the other side of the road at the same time?
DOT?
Well,
meaning-
whoever, so that.
Yeah, so
like
any,
Electric,
yeah, any impacted utility, I know they're relocating a bunch of poles as part of the project.
oh, they're not putting them under
No, they're not burying the electrical.
any, what an opportunity, I think, right? Or
They will tell you that it's cost prohibitive.
can't they just use these costs?
Meaning it's, as I've.
I don't know, on the spot, I'm just thinking
I
out
wanted the same
loud.
thing myself, right? And
Okay.
I asked the same question, like, why are we still stringing wires on poles?
Well,
You know,
especially if you're digging up a road
Yeah.
like this.
They, in asking that question to the electric utility, they make the statement that even the cost for repairing storm damage factored in, it's still more expensive to put the wires in conduits under the pavement than string them on a pole and repair them if a tree comes down in a storm.
But if they're underground, they probably won't have to get repaired.
I doubt-
well, that's my argument, is if we put them underground, there's gonna be no repair, but it's too much money, is what they argue.
I think, once you bury the main line, every feed to every house, every property has to go underground. Everyone. Into the basement.
Oh, I'm not sure about that, Alan.
It's the
Okay.
way it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
That's how it is. But, I mean, it has to be a mandate to do them all.
Yeah.
Or you don't do them. Or if you want to personally do it.
And when is the time frame for this?
So that, yeah, good question. So the DOT project is only to the 25% design stage. So they still have another 75% of design to go. They were originally intending on bidding the Mass DOT project in calendar year '24, but they're not sure if that's going to slide or not, depending on how long it takes them to complete their design.
When were they gonna bid it?
2024. Another factor which benefits us is with Mass DOT picking up our project within their scope, the delays that are pretty much guaranteed to come with the ordering of the ductile iron pipe and things like that, that's going to likely delay the start of the project because, ductile's out a year. So while it may get bid and the contract's awarded, if I had to guess, the project is going to be delayed just due to supply chain.
Right.
I think you're guessing right.
So, like I said, these are numbers I'm anticipating they're gonna change. We have a couple upcoming meetings with DOT to try to refine everything, but I just wanted to get these out there. One other thing that we will likely need to do as part of the Route 28 project, though I don't see it being a costly exercise, I was trying to get it such that we could use the easement that DOT is taking for drainage purposes. So if you're looking at the Herring River Bridge from an aerial, the dentist office that's to the left is looking to where we're looking to come up with a directional drilled pipe. DOT is taking an easement there to do some drainage BMPs, but they said that we should get our own. So I got to reach out to the dentist's office and let them know that we're going to be looking for an easement, which will likely require another town meeting article this year so that we can take that easement.
Why can't we use the same one?
We don't have one presently. Right now, we're
It was
just,
DOT. We can't piggyback off the DOT?
I asked, he said, you got to get your own.
They don't want to share
All right, thanks, Dan.
liability.
All right, up next is the water restrictions bylaw and special legislation.
I'm no further than we were, sorry.
So is this Attorney Giorgio's?
Yeah, so this is
Final.
the latest draft of the special act and water restriction bylaw language. Noreen and I did spend some time conceptualizing a couple changes. I don't have those in the packet, but
Do you have them written down or what?
Well, I don't have them to give them to you, but I can tell them in very general.
Okay.
Dan and I, what we walked through, what I was concerned about was the actual procedures for if commissioners stepped in as hearing officers
Yep.
to decree. It'll still be a burden to staff because they still have to prepare some kind of a piece of paper to hand to us saying, these are the people, these are their records, these are that. And then if the person is denied, the communication has to go back. So the staff will get a burden regardless, but so bottom line, if it's ever approved that we could actually put fines on their bills, the way Dan and I were talking about it when we discussed it was that, your memory might be better than mine.
I'll try.
Well, a notice would go out that would say, we intend to place a fine on your account we intend to place a fine in your account. If you want to dispute this, then you have a 10-day period to request a hearing. So then those would, however they work, of being communicated, would come to the staff. They would group meetings, so that, and I would like it to be 2 commissioners, just for the sake of witness and everything else, so that on some kind of a revolving, or whoever has more time, which I do, could meet every Wednesday morning or whatever, or every other Wednesday morning, depending on volume, see these people. I can't imagine we would have all the evidence they have in front of us, so there isn't, a heck of a lot they could say at that point, but it would be giving the person, if they wanted to show up, the opportunity to say, whatever they wanted to. And then at that point, after that hearing, it would go to staff, fine placed on the thing, but also with the information that if they still had a problem, they could abate it, request an abatement. And then that abatement would come before the full board, and then the person would be told if it was denied, they had the right to go to appellate court as they did with any other kind of abatement. So that's kind of what we were thinking about. And we were trying to get that into words, which we didn't quite finish. Because it's complicated, but any comments, input, that's just what Dan and I were beating out over a phone. So, any ideas on how it would really work?
I just see the office staff taking on a lot more work. The phone's gonna be ringing we notify them that we're gonna put a lien or a fine on their bill. They're gonna call the office. And someone in the office has to put that down in writing with however many other names. Then they come in, they have to get all the information together for us. They have their hearing, denied or approved. Then it goes back to them to be put on the agenda, to Tracy to put on the agenda.
If they ask for anything.
Right. If they ask for a hearing.
But the hearing would have already happened.
I'm just saying that. Right? So we notify them we're gonna fine them.
Yeah.
Then they have, 10 days to notify the staff
Right?
if they wanna have a hearing.
Right. The work, I'm not trying to make it light, I'm trying to make it realistic. But the work, as far as compiling it, would probably already have been done pretty much by the staff, or it wouldn't have gotten to the stage where they said, we want to fine you, so.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
clarification? So, they'll get a notice in the mail, and in that notice, it'll say that you have 10 days, right? It's not to request a hearing, but they still are responsible for paying that fine.
No, there's
No.
no fine at that point.
No.
That's to give them that was recommended by Giorgio, because you always need to give them due process and a chance to object. So that would just be telling them that we intend to fine them, but we're...
So that also is, postage,
So,
notification.
I'm
Is it-
confused.
Yeah, no,
So, is it just, so somebody calls or somebody calls the office and says, oh, this person on such and such a street is watering, or someone from the department, one of us identifies the same thing, and we go through a list and see that they don't have their own private well, first of all, right?
Well-
Because this is not the well stuff.
Well,
It
but
is.
the well's gonna be,
The well's in
gonna be
here.
in it.
Oh, it is gonna be in
Yeah,
here,
okay,
okay.
well is in here.
So forget the well stuff, well list, and then a notice goes out to them saying, your property's been identified that you were watering illegally, and then we want them to come in person and speak to us, is that the,
No.
is that
Well,
the
they
intent?
have the right. They have the right. They don't have to come in front of us. We're gonna send them a notice saying that you're being fined for water violation or restrictions. We're gonna let them know they're going to be fined. They have 10 days to request a hearing to come, to be heard, to dispute, yes or no, or whatever. but Giorgio says we have to give them the opportunity to come and dispute the fine.
Why can't we do that in step one?
Personally, when you get a speeding ticket, you don't go to contest the police chief before they actually,
Yeah.
you're obligated to pay the ticket, right? If you issued a speeding ticket, you have to pay it or check a box and go to a hearing.
Right.
I think we're duplicating a step, but Giorgio would know better. But, I would think we're satisfying the same recommendation by saying you have violated the water use restrictions. Should you like to dispute this violation, you may request an abatement through the Water Commission.
Is it because it may come from a non-legal person, like a police officer might, not a police officer, not somebody from the water department is calling in or making an anonymous tip? Is that his argument?
No.
His comment was they are entitled to due process, and that is the process to come. That's what he said.
But isn't when you get a speeding ticket, that's your
Right.
due process, right?
I can only tell you what he said. I can't understand it. I can't explain it. I'm just telling you, that's what Attorney Giorgio said, that we need to do, what do you call it, fine officer, not a fine,
The hearing
a
officer.
hearing officer. That they're entitled to a hearing.
That's his word.
Well, we're not taking that away from them. We're just,
Before the...
why are we
Before
doing a
the-
double clerical?
Okay, so
Sorry.
no, he was, hey, I would like to get rid of it as well, believe me, if we can figure out a way. No, he was saying before you fine them, before you take, so the way I think of it is kind of like an indictment, all right?
So you have to send them a notice before you do the actual fine?
Bill,
Yes.
fine.
So you
That's-
violated the rules, you've used too much water,
Or you're watering on a day that you're not
You're gonna
supposed to,
get a,
whatever.
you're gonna get a fine in the mail?
I'll get that.
Okay.
That's redundant.
And let me go back to my indictment, all right? You hear a lot about stuff like, search warrants and things like that are, done from a distance, without the person knowing about them. What if instead of putting 65, I know we're all wonderful, but we're human, what if we put 65 Oak Street instead of 75 Oak Street? And then we find that person. That person has had no opportunity to come and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not my house. You guys,
Yes, they do. We're sending them a notice that says, you are being fined because you have been identified as using water illegally.
Right.
If this is incorrect, or if you want to dispute this, then contact the office within 2 hours of receipt of this, or 2 weeks rather, of receipt of this notice, and the process will be to go before the commissioners.
We had a discussion about the abatement process. I can't remember what
Right?
was it?
okay.
Something about
I
due
remember.
process.
I
There was no
remember.
due- I know you kept saying due process.
Okay, so-
They're entitled to a hearing.
Again, like you, I can only tell you what Giorgio said.
Right.
And it is on tape, but what Giorgio
What
said,
Giorgio said is on tape?
Just one
Yeah.
second, good. Yeah, he was here.
he was here. It was a
Was I
late,
not here?
no, you were on the phone.
Oh, you were on the
with him.
phone.
I was on the phone.
You know,
Okay.
here is good, but it is on tape, it was a lengthy, complicated discussion.
yeah.
But at any rate, what he said, now I lost my train of thought.
It wasn't
Was-
making our job any easier, that's for sure.
Right, but he said that the hearing officer would have to be there for due process. And then as far as the abatement goes, see, the part about the abatement, all right, so let me put the good part of this forward, and since I seem to be sounding like an advocate, which I'm not, the good part of this is, let's say somebody says you got the wrong address, and they show up for a hearing, and we're heartless. We say, no, we're gonna fine you anyway. So then they get their bill, and there's a fine on it, so then they request, now, many people by now will have just paid the fine. They know they were watering, and our staff told us they were, and that's the way it is. But, so now they say, no, we want an abatement. So they come before the full board then, they have an abatement hearing, and we say no. The good part of this is then, if they want to go further, they have to take the action. Like that fellow we had from last August, they have to go to the appellate court. They have to fill out the forms. The way our system is now, Dan and staff have to be the ones to go to the collecting, to the district court and everything else. See, that would all be eliminated, so
Yeah, but it's
Right,
still.
we're eliminating the court.
the court, we're eliminating them filling out all those tickets, going to district court, the whole bit.
Tracy?
Well, we're not eliminating
Hold on a
if they
second,
fill it
hold on a
out.
second.
What
Tracy?
if they're watering every day? Would you have to keep sending them notice
I don't
when
know.
they're on your
I
front?
think-
I think Giorgio said we would.
Yeah, but, you know, the brain can only take so
Every
much.
single day before we add another fine, like,
Yeah,
then
I
I can
guess
see that.
legally,
snowballing
that's,
into, like,
You see, the biggest
So
problem,
every time you
the
have to
problem
give
here is we're losing, I don't think we're losing track of the bottom line is, the bottom line is we're trying to get people to follow the rules and not walk.
Right.
And then hold them accountable to what they, to when they do. So all of this work that we're going through and all this we're taking on, and when I say we, I mean you, is because of a handful or percentage of people who I have heard blatantly say, I'm gonna keep watering and I don't care and I'll pay the fine. So when I hear that, that bothers me because everyone else, the majority of it, are doing the right thing and have brown lawns, and you just don't care whether you have a well or not, and you're gonna water anyway. So how do we stop that? Because believe me, I don't wanna go through all this. I don't wanna be a hearing officer. I don't wanna hold people's hands. I want just them to do the right thing. How do we get that 10% there?
well, the state has environmental police.
Are they out driving around looking at neighborhoods?
No,
Fine.
I'm thinking if there's an escalation and, I mean, it goes up to the court, and, yeah, what,
Well, I've also heard that other towns aren't taking it to the level that we're taking it either.
That's
Sandy?
right.
I just was wondering if we have a time restriction on this, what is the deadline? And do we have time to sit down, like, we haven't really had a lot of time to sit with Dan to walk through just, you know, this last update from Giorgio. And do we have the time to sit with Dan and kind of like think through the steps and then come back for us to?
Oh, there's no
work-
decision, yeah, we're not
We're
making a
not gonna
decision on this.
resolve
tonight.
it.
So I didn't
No,
know, are we in
yeah.
a rush to
No,
get this done in a certain time for town meeting warrant this year, or, yes?
But I don't know what, we don't
I
have any
know.
deadlines or dates yet for when things
Okay.
need to be submitted.
Because there's a lot of things,
Yeah.
just what
Oh,
we're
yeah,
saying,
no,
the
of
day,
course,
the
yeah.
day-to-day watering, and then the 10 days, that's part of the problem, is a lot of the mailings are to off-Cape residents. So when
Right.
they have 10 days to notify us, is that from when they receive it? Is that, 2 weeks can span while they're
Especially
waiting for
way
that,
mail-
and they're
you know.
continuing to water, and we're still
Right.
getting calls and
Right.
calls, so kind of like just what Tracy's saying, but we really haven't had a chance to like
Right.
right.
work through the process to make sure that both bylaws and regulations sort of support the process.
This is definitely gonna be a work in progress.
Okay.
We are not gonna get this right,
Okay.
right away. 'cause
Thank
it's-
you.
Yeah, don't worry.
So, about the timing, and no, we're not gonna resolve this today, but I thought that bylaw changes, which is what this would be, required a public hearing, all right? So I asked Dan to ask Giorgio that question, because you always hear, quite frankly, with the Conservation Department and Planning Department, you hear people say, well, did that go to, planning for a public hearing yet? Well, at any rate, Giorgio's answer was ambivalent. It said, no, there is no specific requirement for a public hearing in this case, but he recommends we do it. And naturally, we would probably want to do it on, a charge that's, a thing that's changed, because what's going to trigger people in this document probably isn't going to be the 10 days in the hearing officer. What's going to trigger people is the wells. The wells are in here, and that's what will bring people out. And so when you ask about timing, all I say is that we try to remember that we have to schedule an official public hearing in between now and preferably not like the day before town meeting, in time for people to give input, so it could actually be considered, for an amendment at town meeting if it was needed. So that's all I'll say to that. Do we need to have Giorgio back again at the next meeting to?
Well, that was, I had kind of went in that direction with them, but I figured it would be good for us to at least have an opportunity to kind of look at it together and then maybe formulate questions. We can have them back at the next
Yeah.
meeting.
I'd love to hear, because we just roughed this out, and it was only because I said, you know, these words are one thing, but how's it actually gonna work, you know? You know, and, or if we could get him to drop that hearing officer provision.
But like you said, right, so we're gonna have someone drive around town, or a neighbor or whatever, call it in, and we still have to have proof that they're
Right.
doing that, which is gonna go to Wellesley to
Right, anyway,
document it or whatever. And then, like you said, it's 75 Oak Street, and we send it to 65 Oak Street, and then 65 Oak Street comes in and said, what are you talking about? And we
Yeah.
have it wrong, so that gives them the opportunity
right.
for
That's
ours
fair.
to get it right before we approve or deny, and then they come back if we don't approve it, if they so choose for abatement.
Right, that's
So,
it,
yeah, there's a lot of steps to this.
yeah, a lot of
I
stuff.
wonder if any of Giorgio's feeling of obligation for the due process was because of the way in which we were receiving complaints for violations. And that's something that, yeah, I think I might have mentioned previously, but if we find ourselves in full-blown mandatory water restrictions, I would like to hire someone,
Yeah.
you know, a seasonal employee to be able to drive around and, you know, witness what we can do, and it'll take a little setting up, but within Elements, the software we have, you can have it generate like a template letter. So it may be such that we could have the person snap a picture,
Right.
print a report, and that automatically generates that notice that goes to the property owner. But if we're the ones policing it, and we're the ones
Right.
producing the evidence, you know, I mean, I would like to think we can get 65 from 75, you know, the address.
No, I know,
you
just-
But,
yeah.
no, but,
What about wells? Do we have the right to do
Yeah,
that?
it's in here.
this is what would grant us the
It's in
right.
here.
Okay.
I talked to a couple other water systems. Some of them ban private wells completely. Some of them ban the installation of new private wells in a zone 2 of a, you know, public water supply. So there's a couple different ways to skin the cat, if you will.
Well, that's how they're getting around it now. Everybody's, I mean, they're sinking wells like crazy.
Like
I
crazy.
mean,
And I think it's a great opportunity for, public education, that, you know, you might have a well in your property, but you're pulling from the same pond down there. I shouldn't say pond, but you know what I mean, you're pulling from the same source as everybody else, so it's really everybody's water.
Oh, no, I know that, but we're gonna get kicked back. I mean,
Yeah.
But you know what, I was at another group, and there were about 40 people there, not the housing one, another thing recently, and people were asking me about the well situation and the state and regulations, and I said, I'll get more information from you. See, I wasn't just speaking off the cuff. And, but there were people, all different walks of life from town, and they were really concerned about the water, in the sense of, you know, we get it, people have private wells, some of them had private wells, but they were like, everything has changed, you know, since the droughts, like repeated droughts. So,
Well, you know, I have to say, I for one, as I've grown here, and I see the more and more development we do, I question whether we have the resources to support it.
Yeah.
At some point, you pull the plug and it's over.
Yeah.
But we're not doing that, there's nobody thinking that way. But it's,
Some of us are.
you know,
Getting in
but
trouble,
it's on the table. I mean, at some point, you know,
Some
you,
point it's like California.
use up all the resources. So if we don't, you know, work to control, and usually we seem to get through these droughts, you know, we get a little run for a bit, we settle into the old ways, and then again, the drought hits.
Well, I mean, even when, you know, Tom Burke was here, he was, you know, you don't have to water your lawn every day.
Right.
It's not good for the lawn.
I learned a lot
I think it's
from him.
education, I think it's really educating people how much water you actually need to water your lawn. The times, like, we got the times wrong, Tom pointed that out. We got the times wrong. That was great information, because now when people are watering, it's more beneficial, it's better for them, and it's conserving water at the same time. So I just think we need to educate people and say, you don't need to water your lawn every day. These are the times that it's best suited to water your lawn. And maybe just help, try to work with them and educate them and restricting them, because restricting's not working, because they're just doing it anyway, it just doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
I thought I had 2 points, now while you guys talked, I have 5, but, somewhere in here, it says that you can come and appeal to the water board for a special exemption in unusual circumstances. I thought it said here somewhere, I have to find it again, but, so somebody with a well who is 5 miles away from, with a private well that's 5 miles away from a well, I'm not saying we'd allow it, but there'd be nothing wrong with them coming in and requesting to be able to use it for whatever reasons, if it truly has no impact on the aquifer, So that's one piece, all right. Also in here, I'm defending Giorgio, I can't believe it, but this allows for curb stops to shut off the water in certain situations, whenever we decide. It's not mandated by this action or that. It also allows for a $500 fine and a $5,000 fine if somebody was being really egregious. So if there's a couple of customers who are really over the top, then we would have those other tools. The last thing I'm going to say is totally different. Maybe we should be thinking about streamlining the ticket process before we go ahead, because this is going to put a lot of complications in it too. And before we just throw out the district court ticket item, so when you people talk, maybe you need to talk about both issues, because the question is, neither one's good. So I don't know, the devil we know, I don't know, but in our discussions, there's no reason, we have this idea of putting the fines on the bills, but if that's gonna be worse than the ticket process, I don't really know.
Yeah, and the other side of it is, it's a shame that we have to be in this predicament, that we have to even do this. We're trying to look out for the community,
I know.
not for individuals.
I still like the idea of the restrictors, but that's a whole other conversation.
Of the restrictor?
Yeah.
What's that?
Water,
It's
like a valve to
You can put
limit.
something on the curb and it decreases the amount of water they get. The irrigation heads won't rise.
Or if we can't just
We can't do
have
that?
turn the quarter-turn valve and
Well, all right, you get your own methods.
But
But wouldn't that do the whole, oh no, just that.
But I agree, there are things in here, tools in here that we could use
Right.
as far as the shut off and the fines. That I don't want to throw, what's the saying? Throw the
Baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
But-
So there is good stuff in here.
Right.
It's just the fining part of it.
Right.
I would just prefer fine them on the bill, and if you want to abate it, come in and abate it. But evidently,
Maybe that's just Giorgio protecting himself as an attorney too. But it
Didn't seem-
I don't
Yeah.
know. Well, in the sense of if the calls can be anonymous,
right, that's the only thing.
you know?
He didn't
Yeah.
bring that up during that discussion, that's all I'm saying. The other thing is, as people look at it, I will say for him, but, we beat him up with typos and everything. Well, I did, all right.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it's a much better document, now seeing the changes. It's readable, it's, less, and like you say, it does have those additional fines and clarifications
yeah,
of
stuff
other
that, yeah,
things,
and the private wells, because, I know they're going to get kickback on it, but a majority of people want that in there.
This will be half the warrant, you realize.
The wells?
Yeah.
I know, but these people are gonna fight it to
Oh, yeah.
the tooth
Yeah.
and down.
This-
These people with deep pockets.
This will be half of the town meeting warrant. My memory is that usually they print the entire original bylaw and then the entire new bylaw, I'm not sure. So this could be pretty much a warrant in and of itself, so people will definitely notice it, that's for sure. So, that's the deal.
Can I ask on E, page 2, the exceptions to non-essential outdoor. So I get the handheld stuff, but when you move to a hose with a nozzle, okay, I get that if somebody's not physically, you know, working around. But the drip irrigation system, that just strikes me as, yeah, I mean, I could see somebody putting those all over there.
You know, I wondered if they meant the kind that are like the bottle, you know, those stupid bottles that people put by shrubs. I had the same thought, but this is the same language that I see in the state stuff, isn't it? You know, so that's why I
Doesn't
didn't...
make it right.
No, I know, I'm just, yeah.
I would like to see that drip irrigation system.
But what about
taken
the
out.
bottles?
I don't know what the bottles are.
They're
and
big in
then
my
the-
neighborhood.
I think that's what you're talking about with the harvested and stormwater runoff? So like you
No,
have a
no,
drip from...
no.
So the only thing I would throw out for drip irrigation is, I use it on my vegetable garden. It is on a timer,
Yeah.
but it comes on for a half hour in the morning, runs,
It does seem
shuts
like for
off.
agriculture, it's okay
Right.
for agriculture.
I know people use similar, you know, stuff to put around their
Like,
shrubs.
yeah, rhododendron and stuff like
I've
that.
got it
It's
in my tree line.
arguably, a lot of times beneath the mulch, arguably better than just like an open
Sprinkler.
sprinkler.
I think that's where education comes in. That's where I think we should ask Tom to come back in and go over some more information, because I think that'd be helpful if we can just get people to understand and educate them as to the benefits of water conservation for us and, you know, for their lawns or gardens or whatever. Try to come to some kind of
I don't want to
understanding.
jump too far out of order here, but that's kind of what I was hoping to get to with the fertilizer education,
Right.
low-drip tank site.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, and then, sorry, and I just wanted to ask about the, it sounds like the outside of hours designated by the, it just, in that same paragraph of E, just sounds like all those things can happen outside of whatever designated hours we had put in.
Well, I don't know what
Was
it
there a reason, I mean, was there
Yeah.
something?
I had him change it because what he had in there was 9 to 5. And, you know, there might...
9 to 5?
Well, that's what he had.
Outside the hours of 9 to 5.
Right,
Oh,
outside
outside the hours of 9
Right.
to 5.
And that wording, outside the hours, was bothersome to me as well. It was his wording, but he had outside the hours of 9 to 5. And I was like, I don't want this board have to, every time we change something, have to go back and look, you know, what was in there. So he changed it to designated by the commission.
It says outside the hours designated by the commission. Isn't it the idea that we would want all the irrigation and/or watering done at a certain hour? Because isn't part of the problem evaporation?
Yeah, that's what this is trying to get to, basically outside the hours designated by the commission. So if we did, maybe we want to do 8 to 6 instead of 9 to 5. So this just gives you the
Oh,
ability
I thought we
to,
were like 8, I thought we were doing like
last year we did
early
midnight to
morning.
8,
Yeah,
and I forget what the evening hours. This
5 to-
just
5 to 8.
retains the ability to dictate what the hours are. If we specify the hours in the bylaw, then they'll always be what they are.
Right.
Oh,
This
okay.
gives us the ability to set them.
Okay, the way I read it was that if we say you can only turn
I
on your
read it the same
irrigation
way, yeah.
at 5 to 8 at night, that's the only time
Yeah.
that you can do all the other kind of waterings for the other 20 hours of a day.
It's not, I don't like it either. I mean, I had the same trouble you're having, and I don't know what else to put in though, but, you know, at least I got the hours out of there, but I struggled with the same conceptual problem you are, Judith.
Well, again,
Well, is it just the word outside? I mean, is the word outside talking about watering outside, or is
Because
the
they turn the
word?
hours designated by the commission
Okay, because,
during, hours allowable, what, you know, something.
all right, I'll tell you what, this is not gonna
Yeah.
get settled today, there's a lot to still look at. Let's,
Can I say one more thing?
Yep.
Just as a thought for you guys, the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center will pay for university interns, usually during the summer, for the water and wastewater too. That's one of the areas that they cover. The organization has to pay them up front, but then you get reimbursed. So you might want to check that out. Also private industry.
This is
You
for
guys
what?
need the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center.
Just what kind of, like,
They have every kind, everything from marketing to technical, engineering students, whatever. It's a database, it's a database that you'll put into and you'll do matching.
all right, we'll leave this on the agenda, and let's reread it and come back with some more ideas. All right, new business, FY23 water revenue projections.
this was one of the items I was gonna ask to table to the next
All right.
meeting.
Fertilizer education, Lothrop tank site.
So building on our last discussion, one of the things that, an idea that came up as we were contemplating the fertilizer education with myself, Katie, the health director, conservation agent Amy, as well as Sean Fernandez, the golf superintendent, was, why don't we show people how to do it? We have our Lothrop tank site. It's a new building. It's got what I would argue, a small enough front lawn for us to actually make an example out of. But with the board's permission, I'd like to try and implement a program where we can demonstrate, reseed it with the lawn that uses the clover, so you don't need to use fertilizer, get drought-tolerant seed, and try to convert that into an example of how you can have a green lawn or an appropriate Cape Cod lawn. With that, I'd be looking to, existing conditions photos, dialogue, everything, all the steps we're taking, what we're applying, when we're applying it, what the watering frequencies are, and just have that all publicly available, so if anyone wants to know how to have a proper Cape Cod lawn, they can drive by and look up and,
Sounds good to me.
That's awesome. Is that a low mow, or you don't even have to mow it?
I have to look, I'm not a grass expert. That I can say for sure.
I think
So
I'm
we're trying
thinking
to-
of like four-leaf clovers, but.
Yeah, well, they have
not-
clover as part of the seed mix, so when the clover dies, it decomposes and provides nitrogen for the grasses.
3 times a year.
You could also do my front lawn,
I just read it.
if you need another site.
You have to you can mow
So
it 3
we
times.
we lost all our trees with the storms last year in our front lawn. And it's just, I don't even know what to do with it.
So I'm really gonna try and lean on Sean Fernandez, the golf department, for some of this, because
Cool.
he's our local expert.
Maybe do some putting?
But, yeah, it'd be good to stop talking about it and start doing it.
Yeah.
Another thing as part of this, and I need to put some more information together, Wellesley had brought up probably a month or two, maybe more than that now, about doing like a rain barrel campaign too, so I think, this could all be part of a bigger PR campaign. In addition to rain barrels, I was thinking we could maybe do rain sensors for irrigation systems, purchase a handful of them, and if someone doesn't have a rain sensor on the irrigation system, they could get one from the department. Things to encourage good water use.
Do they still make wooden barrels or metal barrels as opposed to the plastic? I've only seen the plastic
Yeah,
rain
those are the
barrels.
plastic ones.
Yeah, it's all just the plastic.
I grew up with wooden ones, but yeah,
You
it
know,
was a while ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Go on, go
No,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's too bad more people don't know how to operate their own controller, because there's, so many ways you can cut down use with that, and, but I wouldn't wanna take on the liability of telling people with all the different brands and everything out there how to do it, because, I mean, if you can control your own water use, it's
It's like the
amazing how much you
heating
can save.
companies, Right?
Huh?
It's like the heating companies, they have all the digital.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, like for mine, I just go down cellar and I put in a bunch of programs and, they can be 8 minutes or whatever, but unfortunately for most people, they have to call somebody to come in to do that, and so naturally you'd be more hesitant than to, I just like doing it. It's true.
Dan?
So I guess I'm gonna try and start to put together some program. I'm gonna reach out to Sean, and try to get something together, and I'll bring it back.
All right, thank you.
I don't know where you'll find the time for it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, therein lies the issue, is finding the time, but,
Maybe if you get with Tommy Birch too.
yeah.
And, yeah, that other gentleman who was here, I learned a lot from him.
Uh-oh.
He was here the same, you mentioned his name once.
Oh, was it? I don't know.
He had been the,
Oh,
water
Dan
su-
Mills, yeah.
Yeah, he was great.
You all set?
Good.
All right.
Look at his phone.
FY '24 Assistant Wastewater Superintendent position.
So in the packet was my first stab at a draft job description for the full-time wastewater person that we've been discussing. Just disclaimer, I have given this to Tracy, Sandy, and Wellesley, asking them to weigh in on different things that this position may interact with them. I haven't been able to get or include their feedback yet, but
Okay. Well, we'll just keep this on the agenda, and we can, work, this be a work in progress too.
I agree, but I was wondering if you could send us the equivalent job, is it Steve,
Yep.
I mean, that job description, so we can, we're
Yep.
hopefully going for some equality, so that might help.
Perfect.
Thank you.
FY '23 Quarter 2 Water Wastewater Budget Updates.
Okay, I'll take this one. Beginning with the water budget, I haven't given you an update yet in this new fiscal year, and unfortunately, but we're 63% through the fiscal year already. So at 63% into the fiscal year, looking at our salary and wages, we've expended 58% of our salary and wages. As for operating expenses, we've spent 68%, just a tad over where we would normally be at 63% into the fiscal year. And our revenues, that was interesting, we're at 68%. So everything's looking good with the Water Enterprise Fund budget, and I also looked back to this time last year because I was curious to see what the percentages were, especially with revenues. So at this time last year, we had collected 68.5 of our revenues, and this year we've collected 68.1.
Oh.
So, yeah, so we're right in line with where we've been, and when Dan reports back with the revenues next, we'll be getting into the differences of how much was in the tiers, what we projected, what was actually billed with the water restrictions. So we'll have more information with the revenue section next meeting.
All right.
But as far as the budget expenditures, we're right in line. Even though we've had some pretty big expenses with the well 4 and well 7, we will be using funds from some of the other line items that we won't be using all of those funds, realigning. So I have some budget transfers to do within this budget, and everything's looking good on the Water Enterprise Fund side.
All right. Noreen?
I don't want to go into the weeds, but I just will say, since we're right on the money compared to last year, but that also does mean, since we had rate hikes, that we've lost that rate hike revenue. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If we, to some degree,
Yes.
because of the water restrictions, so.
Right,
We
right.
have to, but at some point, and I know there's a question about, on the very first line of that 300,000 transfer. So So that's an issue, but we don't have to go into those weeds today or here, but that was from last May town meeting, and it may or may not have been booked as it should have been, so we'll find out more later.
We also, Dan and I will be sitting down to put a list of items together for the finance director. We have not received any of our interest income.
Right.
Going back to before, toward the end of FY '22. So when the previous finance director left, that's when our interest revenue stopped being posted. So we have many months of that to ask to be posted, both for water and, well, I'm not sure about wastewater or the sewer enterprise fund, but definitely for water.
So we're going with sewer enterprise fund?
Sewer enterprise fund, yes. This one is more, I'm still adjusting to this as well, but I didn't want to give water without doing the sewer, so that you can at least be familiar with the reports and the line items, what we're spending. In the sewer enterprise fund, we haven't had enough in the natural gas or the gas utility line item, but I think in the FY & we've increased that. So if you look at the gas utility, there's only $18 remaining. I've been paying it out of a different line item because there's not enough funds. So if I have the permissions to do so, I may make a budget transfer within our budget to, because the gas bill should be paid out of the gas line item. And when you start paying things out of not the right line item, it skews our history.
Right.
Yeah.
Noreen?
So again, don't want to go into the weeds on this, but, so I have two questions on the wastewater one. The first is, of course, the very first line, that inter-fund transfer, which, there's something that's not right about it. I think it's somehow involved with our debt, but as you see, it makes wastewater looks like it's got millions of dollars, which of course it doesn't. So they've transferred the cost of the debt, we think, into us, but they never took the cost of the debt out. So just so people are aware, there's something major going on here. We truly don't have $2 million. But my other question, more specifically under wastewater expenses, is you have the line interest on long, and I'm assuming that's long-term debt, but what long-term debt would we be paying for out of wastewater?
I believe these are reflective of the projections for phase 2. Well, I believe it's for all the wastewater debt. Because when I look at the debt schedules for phase 2, those debt payments are, depending on which chart you look at, anywhere between $500,000 to $800,000. So we would have debt from the Muddy Creek Bridge opening, from all the design contracts, resident oversight. But when I look at this, I look at it as though this was anticipated debt payments that would occur in the current fiscal year that have not been charged yet, or paid yet.
By somebody else,
Yes.
but yet it's in our budget.
But, because isn't the debt part, we're just doing the operations, correct?
Yeah, so
Or
Carol
are we
last
getting
year,
debt from that operations?
so I believe it was last year, Carol
It was.
assigned the wastewater debt to the sewer enterprise fund for accounting tracking purposes. My understanding of enterprise fund, I don't know if it's law or practice, procedure, is that, like our water enterprise fund pays all of our water enterprise expenses. Our sewer enterprise fund should be paying for all of our town-related sewer expenses.
Yeah.
Though, because our sewer was funded through a subsidy, that's why she's moved it in and we see it come in as a transfer, from here moving forward. So,
But with the idea that the town will every year
transfer in the sum to pay that
pay
debt.
down the, okay. So it's just an accounting,
There's one other component.
it's not an
and
ownership of the debt.
I don't know if this was part of Carol's calculation or not. One of the things that I did see when we were submitting the application for the state revolving fund for the water and sewer projects was there were conditions on enterprise funds in that there be no transfer from the enterprise fund back to the general fund
That's
for-
right, I saw
for
that sometime.
payments. I think it was for payments related to debt and construction, things like that. So I think, based on what I've been exposed to, it's proper that it's put in here, and if we did leave it as a general fund obligation, we do generate a surplus in revenue, and the general fund wants us to offset those debt payments. That would require a transfer out of the sewer enterprise to the general fund if it was kept over there, which would then make us not eligible to receive certain funding appropriations from the state.
That makes sense.
I haven't had anyone say that to me definitively, but
No,
that's the pieces
right.
I picked up from that.
But it's just, I guess, my confused point is that this only represents half the picture. I mean, we don't have $2 million.
Right.
Right.
And I think it's important too, and you had asked that, what's the long-term debt for?
Right.
These numbers were all provided to
I know.
us. And I'm looking, Sandy, do we get provided these numbers every year on water debt, or is that put in by accounting?
We have the debt schedules for water debt. I have a spreadsheet, so I have all of our debt, listed out until it's paid off. So every year when we prepare the budget, I move the principal and interest payments for those fiscal years. So nobody has to give it to us because we already have the debt schedules. For wastewater, I don't even have a debt schedule. I mean, Dan, we have a proposed, I don't even have any debt schedules, which we should ask for, because then that I could support this information. I mean, I agree with what Dan said. It belongs in here, just like our water enterprise fund. And if we can't transfer money out of enterprise, then at least if we do have enough revenue generated, it lessens the subsidy they have to, the transfers, but.
I would like to get all the debt schedules, because I would like to sum them
Yes.
and get these numbers.
Yeah,
which we
and I
can't
just
do.
want to add that at least with the water enterprise fund, our principal
Right.
and interest, everything's already been taken out and
Yeah.
charged, but with the wastewater one, I was surprised it hasn't been charged or paid yet. At this point,
And sometime, could you do on Munis for me, an inquiry on that year-to-date paid on the 123? I'm just curious what's in there.
yes, I can do that,
thanks.
sure.
I don't want to go any deeper in the
Yeah,
weeds
yeah.
on that then. So, a lot more problems.
That's where you pay the big bucks for.
That's right.
All right, so is that it for the water, wastewater? Okay. Brings us down to superintendent's report. Procurement update, waterworks, supplies bid.
So included in the packet was a bid tab from a recent waterworks material bid that we conducted. Just want to put this in there to keep the board up to date on procurement activities. So we did sign a contract with Ferguson for the 3906,685. Beyond that, I would just throw out a reminder for those who haven't done it, the conflict of interest law training is due.
All right.
How long did you say this Ferguson contract go?
So these are just standalone materials. Because of the way that the supply chain issues we're having, instead of doing an annual procurement bid,
Yeah,
we're bidding it in chunks. So this is, once the material's delivered, it's up. We'll have
that
to do
ends
another-
that
Yeah.
particular contract. Okay.
All right. That's it for superintendent's report, Dan?
I think that's all I have, unless I'm forgetting something.
All right, Commissioners report. Mr. Thompson.
I'm good.
Ms. Underwood.
Good.
Ms. Donahue.
Good.
Mr. Goff.
Good.
All right, I'd just like to read this. You all have a copy of the Town of Harwich procedure for remote participation. It seems like the Select Board amended it on February 6, 2023. Just read it real quick. Remote meeting participation is authorized by amended open meeting law regulation and is available to all municipal boards, committees, and commissions in accordance with the Attorney General's CMR 2910 issued on November 11th, 2011, and approved by a vote of the Board of Selectmen on December 12th, 2011. The Select Board on January 9th, 2012 further adopted these local procedures for remote participation so long as a quorum of the body, including the chair or in the chair's absence, the person authorized to chair the meeting shall be physically present at the meeting location. The Town of Harwich will allow remote participation by audio or video communication. A member of a board, committee, or commission who cannot attend a meeting for one or more of the 5 permissible reasons must notify the chair, acting chair, that they qualify for and wish to participate remotely, or acting chair if the chair is seeking remote participation, and the chair, acting chair, shall notify the information technology director and Channel 18 station manager for remote go-to Zoom Teams access in a meeting room at least 48 hours prior to the scheduled meeting. Chair or acting chair shall identify for the record any and all remote participants at the start of the meeting. To assure accurate votes taken during the meeting, the chair shall specifically ask for the remote participants' vote. The meeting minutes shall reflect the member who participated by remote access. Members are allowed to participate remotely up to 3 times per calendar year. If the circumstances warrant an extension longer than 3 remote participations per year, the chair of the board, committee, or commission must grant such extension. Remote participation shall be limited to 2 members at any meeting. Cost of remote participation shall be borne by the remotely participating member. The 5 permissible reasons allowed for remote participation are 1, personal illness, 2, personal disability, 3, emergency, 4, military service, or 5, geographic distance. This was adopted at a public meeting of the Board of Selectmen on January 9th, 2012, amended May 23rd, 2016, and again on February 6th, 2023. So, that's what they came up with. And that's all I have.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So if I am away for work, is that covered under geographic
I would say
distance?
geographic distance.
And then what do they mean the cost is covered?
I don't know.
Because,
That would surprise me.
Maybe so
Yeah,
that
and-
if like you can't ding the town to pay your phone bill because you were on a meeting,
okay.
maybe?
I don't know, I don't know.
It was, and I know one of the,
I would have thought it would be personal illness or family member.
yeah, that makes sense too. Maybe that could be an emergency. No, I know that there's one member of the school committee that for medical reasons cannot meet in closed, their doctors restricted them from going to, because of COVID and stuff. I can't imagine them charging that person per go-to meeting. I don't know. Strange language, no?
Good point.
And we can find out what the cost is related to. I don't know.
The phone call, I mean, I don't know what that would be.
Maybe you're right, maybe they're thinking that I'm gonna
Uh,
send it a...
So next meeting would be the week of, week ending March 3rd. Are we good with Thursdays? Because that works for you right there. So is Thursday still good for everybody? 11:30, March 2nd.
We do have the budget roundtable scheduled for March 4th with the
What time is
Finance
that?
Committee and Board of Selectmen. I believe everyone's been told to show up at 9, I think. We don't have time slots as we have in the past.
That's a Saturday?
Just gonna show up at 9 o'clock, we're just gonna wait around?
Yeah.
When's March 2nd?
Do we
Thursday.
usually go?
Yeah.
I don't think I can make it. I think I'm gonna be in Florida.
Right, oh, to the whole week?
Yeah.
All right, wanna do the following week?
What date?
The 9th? Does that work for anybody, everybody?
I believe so.
Yeah.
All right,
They're
11:30.
bound to have time slots before that day, I hope.
I don't believe there is an intention to schedule time slots.
And March 4th is Saturday, and that's, budget.
Yep.
Budget hearing?
At 9.
Budget meeting. And that's with, okay.
You don't know
That's
what
just-
time yet.
And that's at Town Hall, Dan?
Usually is.
It's usually is, but I know there was a discussion, I don't know that I've been provided a final location yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Traditionally Griffin Room,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe they want
I
to.
know there was talk at the community center, but I think it's difficult for Jamie to do it all over at the community center, so I think they might do it at the Griffin Room like we have historically, so
Mhm.
not positive.
They told you 9 anyway.
Do they have scheduled us a time yet?
No, I don't know that they are planning to schedule time slots.
Oh,
Are they gonna have coffee and donuts, so we can just wait around?
No.
or-
I don't know.
Can we put a
Hey, you're
request-
lucky you're being invited,
Can we put a
okay?
request in for coffee and donuts? We should-
I'll bring us some snacks.
We can put a coffee machine.
I love it.
We'll lend it to the town.
Yes, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So even though, you know, I hate this governmental talk, I'm still a little concerned about timing in this bylaw, so, I'm not suggesting a meeting early, I don't know what to suggest.
Oh.
If we meet on the 9th and then hash this around, and then talk about Giorgio coming in, we'd be having a public hearing, like the end of April. My problem with having a public hearing late is that, I'm just gonna be very frank, it's almost like saying to the people, we're gonna have a public hearing, but we're gonna have it so we don't have time to do anything with your input. You know what I mean? If you don't, if you're gonna have a public hearing, it's so you can consider what people bring to you. So if you wind up having a public hearing the week before town meeting, so I don't know the answer to our time problem here.
Can't throw out an
Huh?
Can't throw out an idea.
Yeah, please.
Obviously, if everyone's good with it, you and I have already started to try and
Right.
take a crack at it.
Yeah.
If it would make sense before the next meeting, you and I can try and
Okay.
get a more final draft together.
Yeah,
Um,
with the ladies'
Yep.
input,
Yeah,
yeah,
then the meeting on the 9th could
Right.
be,
that's true.
blessing it,
Yeah,
assuming we don't have any major
Right.
changes, we could go to a public meeting end of
or even
March.
early, end of March would be wonderful, even early April makes more sense to me. That sounds good, but only if we keep in mind that if anybody on the board has any input, please send it to Dan. And also, let's keep in mind, maybe we should keep the ticket system, because we could take that little tiny bit of language out, and we would still have a bylaw that would add private wells, some other fines and some other methods, and
But then we'd have to go back and add to that bylaw if we don't get it all in the first time, right?
actually, we would just cross out his section about the fines going on the bills, and it would just go forward. He would change, I don't have it in front of me, that front page,
Yep.
and knock off section 2. Pretty much, there may be some other words, references somewhere, but that's it, and it would just go forward. And it would be the kind that, if once it's approved by the Attorney General, which if he was going to approve it, would be in the summer, but we wouldn't be changing anything other than wells, really. But that's all right too, it's a better written document, so he wouldn't have to do a ton of work, we'd just be eliminating that. Section 2 of that cover page that. There was another thing too, just to mention, and I hate having pressure put on us this way, but some of the language he had, the theory is that was Orlean's language, so it will go through the government faster. And, quite honestly, I said to him, I hate this. This is like how the government works. We have to vote for something we don't want, so that then we can add something on that we do want, afterwards. It drives me crazy. But, you know what I didn't even know till the last meeting? The fact that there aren't capitals in here is on purpose. They don't allow capitals. I mean, this is our government. It's nuts.
Well, the legislature, the House has voted themselves that they don't have to follow open meeting law. So the Senate didn't, but,
it's hard for me,
really.
But, so that's why some of the language too, which I don't really agree with, following another town.
I agree. I have no problem with you and Dan meeting and, working through it, because I think that's beneficial. There's just so much here to get right.
Yeah.
I personally really don't see us getting this done.
I don't
this year.
either, that's what I'm saying.
I really don't, it's too much.
Yeah.
And I really don't see, I don't think Attorney Giorgio is getting what we're trying to get at. I think the board would rather just fine him and come for abatement. That's due process. I mean, is that his opinion? Is that law? Who else do you ask? Like, where do we go?
I remember what
I'm trying, and I think we're all trying to not dump everything on the office staff. They have more than enough to do. We have wastewater coming in, phone calls about wastewater. I would love to have Tom Birch do something as far as education, trying to get on the same page with homeowners, maybe on Channel 18 to do something. But again, if people are going to water, then I want to find them. That's just the bottom line. But I want this right, so we have it as law, as far as the fines, shutting people off, limiting what they can water, wells. But it just seems like there's so much language in there that I don't think we're on the same page. And I don't know how many times we have to meet to try to get to that point, because it's taken a lot of time, Judy.
I would like to work with you guys too on this, having worked on a lot of legal stuff before, legislation. I think it's important at least to get it, at least it will help any kind of discussion, even if it were to get shot down at town meeting. It's opened the door wide and allowing for more education, I think. But I think the well question is imperative. I think the well question is, and there's always going to be those bad actors. And maybe, maybe this will make some space somewhere in the budget to hire some more support staff, because maybe we are going to need it anyway with the wastewater. I don't know.
Okay. I'm not saying not to go ahead with it. We need it, and I want it. I just don't realistically see it happening this year. I just really don't. Well, I'm not saying not to. I'm just saying.
I'm happy to spend a few hours helping and see if we can get it done.
Okay, so just to frame this section 2, the problem section, what Giorgio said was that he felt that the due process part, the hearing officer part, he felt that the legislature would not pass it without that. So that's where that came from, because he said the legislature will always be looking for a due process action. So that's just background. So the only thing I want to decide now is, we don't have to abandon the whole thing. We have version 1, which is all in here, which just adds the wells, the additional fines, and streamlines the whole project. We have version 2, which is also all in here, just one paragraph difference, which does all of what version 1 did, and also attempts to add on the ability to add fines to water bills. So I don't see any reason why we can't go ahead with version 1 this year. I can't see us getting version 2 down. So we will have to make a decision, not today, about, which version are we trying to write? You know what I mean? Even the three of us together, which I want to hear from the staff first. But, what is, before we spend, because we spent almost 2 or 3 hours just getting this, Dan and I, as far as we did, because there were errors all through it.
I'm gonna go back and listen to the meeting.
That would be.
When you all do meet with office staff, I really would like their input as the process they're gonna have to go through.
Right.
How long it's gonna take, talk it out and see realistically, like, the amount of work it's gonna take to get it, because
Thought.
I mean, we could do version 1 and then do an add-on to a bylaw in another year. I mean, but I would wait for input.
all right, are we good? Next meeting is March 9th. Right, March 9th, at 11:30. Motion to adjourn?
So
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you.